I'd like to, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and talk about discovering their stories, because this really, in my experience, this does bring genuine healing to me. And I can feel, because I'm psychically sensitive, I can feel that it ripple effects across the veil. There actually is, it's a subtle healing effect. Talk about what your experience of what does this feel like when you've settled something?
Well, I can give you a very concrete example that wasn't actually very subtle. For years, I had suffered from something called sleep paralysis, where I would wake in the middle of the night and I could not move and I stopped breathing. And at one point, I saw the proverbial white light. And it was like, I'm conscious, I'm awake, but I can't move. I can't even breathe. And I believe my spirit guides were talking to me because I could hear somebody say, roll over, move, and you'll start breathing again. And I would respond and say, I can't move. Roll over so you can breathe. I can't. I'm always on my back at this time. Well, anyway, so I suffered, and it was random. I couldn't pinpoint it to a time of year, to an allergy, to stress. I couldn't pinpoint it to anything. It was just, I never knew when it was going to happen. I saw a sleep doctor, and he diagnosed me with sleep paralysis. And he said, if you can even move a pinky, it'll break the spell, is what he called it. So a couple of years go by, I start training with a shamanic practitioner, and I mentioned my sleep paralysis, but that's all I told him. I didn't say anything about it. Well, in the course of my studies, he and I was studying with him privately. He said I took the liberty to do a journey. That's what shamanic practitioners do, is they do a psychic journey to talk with their healing guides, or forget what they call them. They don't call them guides. Helpers. And and he says, I took the liberty of talking with my helpers and seeing if we can heal that sleep paralysis. I said, oh, that's good. And he said, and what I saw was your mother with a chain around her ankle, and the chain going to her mother, to her mother, to her mother, to her mother. In genealogy, we call this the umbilical line, or the matrilineal line. It's mother to mother, the mother, the mother. And I just looked at him. I said, well, you're not going to believe this. But when I saw the sleep doctor, I did a DNA study. And I contacted all my relatives, because we come from small families. And I emailed everybody and said, have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? And I described what it was. It was isolated to my mother's side of the family. And so I told him that. I said, well, I think you're spot on about something. And he says, the thing is, it goes back 15 generations. There's some female 15 generations back. Something happened to her. He says, I don't know what. He said, they didn't tell me, but something happened to her that was traumatic. And that has affected each of the females going forward. I said, well, great. What do I do about it? And I write about this in Midlife Medium, because what he said to do is set up an altar. And I had told him I had written a book about my matrilineal or umbilical line, my female line. He says, well, on the altar, put the book. And he says, and you do a journey to see what else you need to put on the altar. So I did a journey, and I was told, okay, a white rose and a candle. Okay. So I go to Walmart, I get a TV tray for my altar. I get an artificial white rose, stick it in a vase, and get a battery operated candle. It just goes to show it's just symbolic and ritual. It's not, you don't have to do a real rose and a real candle and a real altar. Anything will do. It's all symbolic, and it's all sending that energy and that vibration out to the ancestors. And he says, and set your intent to heal the line, because the first thing I did was try to trace back 15 generations, and I didn't get very far. You can't go back that far, especially on a female line. So I did that, and I had it going for, I don't know, a couple of months. And finally I said to my spirit team, I need a sign. Is this healed or what? I need a sign. Well, on the winter solstice, I think it was 2017 or no, 2016, I think, the winter solstice, a neighbor calls me and says, oh, there's a big bird on the fence on the backyard. I don't know what to do. My dog's going crazy. There's this big bird. And I'm thinking it must be a hawk. We have hawks around here every now and then. I said, well, I'm upstairs. I can look out my bedroom window and see the fence dividing our yards. I look out and there is a peacock perched on the fence. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. There are many peacocks here. And I thought, I just got my sign. So my husband grabs the camera to take pictures. I have the picture over my desk to this day. And I thought that must be the sign. Well, so I email my daughter and I tell her about it. She's a skeptic. She doesn't believe any of this anyway, but I tell her about it and she says, oh, that's crazy. And then a few hours later, she emails me back. She is in Hawaii visiting her in-laws. And as they're leaving their in-laws' house, what walks across the road? A peacock. And my daughter had her young daughter at the time, and she was pregnant with her next daughter. And I thought, it's been healed. It gives me the goosebumps. It's been healed backwards and forwards. And my daughter also had sleep paralysis, and we have not had an episode since. I know. Spooky. I know.
I love stories like that. That's why I do this. I love stories like that. Wow. Did you ever figure out what the rollover instruction was, or did that not really enter into it?
Yes. If I could roll over, I would start breathing again. It was something about being on my back. But then when I did move, when I rolled over, everything was fine. The most recent time before the healing, when I saw the white light and I came to, I just laid there for a moment and I could feel, and I was chilled, just chilled, not outside, inside. And I could feel my blood start to circulate again. I could feel it moving. It was the most bizarre experience I've ever had. But yeah, if I could move to break the spell, but this time I moved and broke the spell, because when I saw the white light, I was going towards it. And then somebody was saying, no, no. And I said, yeah, I want to see what's there. And they're, no, no. And it felt like a giant shop vac sucking me back into my body. So, and then I was able to move. And like I said, I just laid there and could feel the blood recirculating in my body. I call it almost near-death experience.
Wow. Wow. That's, again, a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing that.